Have you ever noticed that Hollywood doesn't really make movies like they used to? And no, I'm not talking about politics, I'm not talking about CGI, and I'm not talking about remakes. I'm talking about an entire category of movies that basically disappeared. Because there was a time when you can walk into any theater on a random Friday night and watch a movie that wasn't trying to become the next Marvel franchise. It wasn't setting up for 6 sequels, it didn't have a post-credit scene, it wasn't based on a comic book, it wasn't based on a toy, it wasn't based on a video game, it was just a movie. A good story, good actors, good writing, and somehow Hollywood stopped making those. A lot of people say modern Hollywood has run out of ideas. I don't actually think that's true. I think Hollywood stopped investing in certain kind of movies because for decades there was a middle ground. You had smaller independent films, massive blockbusters, and right in the middle, mid-budget movies, the movies regular people watched, the movies your parents rented, movies that played on cable for 20 years, the movies that became classics without even needing a cinematic universe. And that's the category that disappeared. When I say mid-budget movies, I'm talking about movies that usually cost somewhere between $20 and $80 million. Not cheap, not insanely expensive. Just enough money to tell a good story. Movies like The Fugitive, The Edge, Heat, Training Day, Enemy of the State, Breakdown, Crimson Tide, A Few Good Men, Air Force One, The Firm. Think about that list for a second. Those movies weren't trying to sell action figures. They weren't trying to launch streaming shows. Nobody was asking, now, do we build a cinematic universe around this? The goal was simple. Make a great movie. That's it. One of my favorite examples is The Edge. Great movie. You have Anthony Hopkins and you have Alec Baldwin. A plane crashes in the Alaskan wilderness. Now they're stranded, and a giant grizzly bear is hunting them. That's the movie. Simple. But the reason it works isn't because of explosions, it's because of the characters, the tension, the dialogue, the survival aspect. You spend the entire movie wondering who's gonna make it out alive. Today, I honestly think a studio exec would look at this script and ask, can it become a franchise? Can it become a streaming series? Can we spin it off? And that's the fucking problem. Not every story needs to become intellectual property. Some stories just need to be good. This is where Hollywood completely changed. Back in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, a movie could simply succeed. Now, success isn't enough. Studios want ownership. They want brands. They want universes. They want merchandise. They want subscriptions. They want reoccurring revenue. Think about it. How many movies today are being made because somebody had an incredible story to tell? And how many are being made because a corporation owns a recognizable name? That's why we keep getting reboots, sequels, prequels, spin-off, legacy sequels. Because Hollywood discovered it's easier to sell familiar than originality. And then streaming came along. Now don't get me wrong, streaming has some benefits, but it's changed the way people consume movies. Movies became content. And content gets consumed differently than movies. A Netflix movie comes out Friday. Everybody talks about it. By Monday, it's gone. Forgotten. Replaced by the next thing. Meanwhile, people are still talking about The Heat 30 years later. People are still watching The Fugitive. People still quote A Few Good Men. Maybe not all the time, but they do. Those movies had staying power, and a lot of streaming content doesn't. This is the part that bothers me the most. Hollywood used to make movies for adults. Not superheroes, not cartoons, not giant fantasy franchises. Adults. Thrillers. Crime dramas, political drama, courtroom drama, survival stories. Movies where the selling point wasn't spectacle. It was storytelling. Look at something like The Firm, or Enemy of the State, or even Crimson Tide. Those movies trusted the audience. They assumed people could sit down for 2 hours and enjoy a story without needing superheroes punching each other through buildings. And audiences loved them. but those movies are becoming increasingly rare. At the end of the day, this is about money. A movie that costs $40 million and earns $120 million should be a huge success. But modern Hollywood isn't about chasing success anymore. They're chasing jackpots. They're chasing billion-dollar franchises. And when you're chasing jackpots, you stop taking reasonable risk. Everything becomes bigger, louder, more expensive, more dependent on existing intellectual properties. And the middle gets squeezed out. I don't think movies today are worse because actors are worse. I don't think movies are worse because technology is worse. I think movies are worse because Hollywood abandoned the middle. The place where some of the best stories live. The place where filmmakers could take chances. The place where movies could simply be movies. And honestly, until Hollywood starts investing in the space again, I think we're going to keep feeling like something is missing. Even if we can't always explain what it is, because maybe what we're missing isn't nostalgia. Maybe we're missing the kind of movies that made us fall in love with movies in the first place. But I don't know, that's just my take. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, share, and subscribe.